Ruby Franke's court case is shaping up to be as controversial as her once popular YouTube page. The 41-year-old mother of 6 is staring down the barrel of 6 counts of aggravated child abuse over allegedly starving and neglecting at least 2 of her 4 minor children. The abuse that police say these kids sustained will break your heart. Daily Mail exclusively spoke about the accusations with Cynthia and Jennifer Franke, Ruby's sisters-in-law, and they shed some light on the family dynamics. Jennifer was not a fan of Ruby. Quote, "I've never really liked her from day one. She always thought she was better than anyone she's around. If you look up narcissist in the dictionary, there will be a picture of Ruby." Now, Ruby herself, alongside her husband, Kevin Franke, proudly displayed their family to millions of followers on their 8 Passengers YouTube page. Ruby was a strict mother and over the years consistently defended her harsh parenting style against criticism. Cynthia and Jennifer Franke are married to 2 of Kevin's brothers, and they've been estranged from Ruby's side of the family for about a decade. But they told us that they had no idea about the alleged abuse and suggested that the real problems may have started when Ruby got mixed up with business partner Jodi Hildebrandt. Now, to be clear, a lot of what they heard about Jodi was through the family grapevine, but Jennifer and Cynthia were told that she lived with the Frankes from 2021 to 2022 and was giving them marital counseling. Hildebrandt is a therapist with a checkered past. Her license was put on probation back in 2012 for discussing a patient with LDS church leaders. This is according to the Salt Lake Tribune. Now, as of recently, Jodi ran her own online program called Connections, which offered self-help courses. But as far as Kevin Franke's family was concerned, quote, it was a cult. Jennifer Franke said, quote, "Kevin was in a men's group at Connections. He had a checklist of what he needed to do to be better, and if you did, they would praise you, and if you didn't, they would chastise you." Now, we know Ruby was intimately involved with Connections because she co-hosted a podcast and a YouTube channel with Jodi called Connections Classroom. Franke and her children were actually staying with Hildebrandt last month when police got a call from a neighbor about a starving, emaciated child asking for help. Cops say Franke's 12-year-old son had escaped out of a window at Hildebrandt's home. Now, both Ruby and Jodi were arrested on felony child abuse a short time later. Now, in a previous video, I went into detail about Ruby Franke's claim to fame, her now defunct family YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. And the reason I bring it back up is because she stopped posting on 8 Passengers at the start of 2022, and during that same time, began appearing with Jodi on Hildebrandt's page, Connections Classroom. 2022 is also when Jennifer and Cynthia Franke claimed that Kevin was, quote, kicked out of the family home. Now, in the days leading to her arrest, when, according to police, at least 2 of her children were being starved inside of Hildebrandt's home, Jodi and Ruby were busy posting new content. Police have said that they actually used these videos as proof that both Franke and Hildebrandt were in the home when the alleged child abuse was taking place, and they used it to help them secure their arrest warrant. These YouTube videos essentially place Ruby at the scene of the alleged crime in real time. And while that does not prove her guilt, that will be determined at a trial, it was enough probable cause to secure her arrest. After the arrest, all 4 of Ruby's minor children were placed in the care of the state. Then, the whole case took an unexpected turn last week at a hearing to determine custody when Ruby made her own shocking accusations of abuse against her children. Daily Mail was the first to report that during a Zoom conference, a tearful Ruby made shocking claims that one of her 6 children had been sexually abusing one of their siblings for years. Franke told the judge that this particular child of hers began watching pornography at 3 years old. She claimed that the child went on to repeatedly sexually abuse their sibling for years, and then alleged that the victim then joined their abuser in molesting other children in the family as well as the neighborhood. Franke told the judge that the child confessed to her in May and admitted to abusing some 20 children. Our reporter covering the hearing said that it was crickets after she made these accusations. No one said a word for quite a bit, and Ruby didn't present any evidence to back her claims. Now, pending some sort of investigation into these sexual molestation claims, the judge determined that the alleged abusing child would be placed in a temporary home with no other children. Now, more details about that alleged molestation will be laid out at a future hearing. I got a lot of questions about these incredibly troubling accusations. The first being, how did a toddler develop a long-term porn habit at 3? It just seems wildly far-fetched to me. Now, when these new accusations of abuse hit the headlines, many of Ruby's detractors wondered if she could be fabricating them to explain away her own alleged abusive behavior. Basically by suggesting that she was left with no choice but to starve her kids, duct tape their wrists and ankles, and tie them up with rope because they were molesting people. Because you have to remember, those are the allegations she is currently up against. According to an arrest affidavit, Ruby's 11 and 10-year-old children were discovered by police severely malnourished with duct tape on their extremities and open wounds that police said appeared to be caused by being restrained by ropes. I will admit that part of me is wondering if what we're seeing here is Ruby laying out the groundwork for a future defense when and if her felony abuse case heads to trial. Cynthia Franke is also thinking along those same lines. She tells us, quote, "I don't know what to believe from her. I think she's lying. She's putting the blame on her two kids to validate what she did to her children. At this point, I think she'll say anything to save herself. I do believe the allegations against her." Last month was not the first time police had been contacted regarding the Franke children. Ruby's oldest, Sherry, who's 20 years old and no longer has a relationship with her mother, said on social media that she had been trying to get the police and Child Protective Services involved with her mom for years. Last year, Sherry called the authorities to do a welfare check on her siblings because she feared the children had been left unattended without parental supervision for days. People magazine reported that police went to the house, but that the children wouldn't answer the door. The responding officer was able to speak with neighbors, however, who reported that Ruby would routinely leave the kids alone for long periods of time when she went out of town. According to a police report, quote, "They expressed great concern about the two youngest children being homeschooled while the two older ones go to public school, mostly because it shows they're home alone during the day by themselves and there isn't any way for them to contact emergency services if needed due to them not having phones and a landline not being available in the home." Prior to that, the police were called to the Franke's Utah home following reports of children running down the street unattended. No arrests were made in either of those instances, but that all changed in August when a Good Samaritan called 911 about a child in distress. We obtained that 911 call and a warning. What you are about to hear is extremely sensitive.
Just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Despite a recommendation to release Franke on her own, recognizant because she's not considered a danger to the community, the judge remanded the blogger back to jail along with Jodi Hildebrandt without bail following their initial appearance in court. Ruby and Jodi are back in court September 21st.